everything is so fake, and you look on social media, they're making videos, and you can tell that they've orchestrated and choreographed.
Yeah.
They're not really out somewhere.
Yeah.
I mean, they got somebody out there taking pictures of
Yeah.
them, so
Yeah.
they're not really living that experience or
Yeah.
whatever, just for the sake of living that experience. They're
Right.
documenting it, and they want to present a certain picture or image.
Right.
Of course, that's just social media, but people have that in their lives too, on maybe a smaller level. They have an image they present to, whether it's their friends or the workplace. Like you said earlier, uh, you've been fortunate to be able to be comfortable with who you are at work
Yeah.
and outside of work.
Yeah.
And a lot of people don't have that. A
Yeah.
lot of people, they have to put on their work face. They have to put on their that
Yeah.
persona of who they're going to be at the job,
Yeah.
and then they get to come home and they get to kind of maybe relax that and be a different version of
Yeah.
themselves. But it's really, really cool when you don't have to do that. When you
Yeah.
don't have to switch,
Yeah.
switch
Yep.
costumes, so to
Yep.
speak. It's just never ending. It never stops, and it never sleeps.
Yeah.
Because out here, social media is 24/7.
Yeah. So constant barrage of
Uh-huh.
just everyone, the personification, they're manipulating who they're trying to come off as versus who they really are. And
Exactly. Yeah.
how do you know? How do you get to know who they really are behind all that? How do people really know if this is really you and I behind all of this social
Right.
media that we're doing? So maybe it's just how do we find a way to convey who we really are and keeping it real through the process of just the manipulation of those sound bites and things that get out. It comes back to this whole interesting religion versus relationship or spirituality.
Uh-huh.
This is what we think we're about versus who we really are in it.
Right.
And it's the combination of two. And what we see is what's interesting in your life. I see a variety of different relationships around you, from guys in and out of the system, and you're consistent with who they are, all of them are. And I hear the same message over and over, that you're really eager to help people elevate and make their life better. In the same way that you've heard in your own life that someone tries to make you better, that you want to just live that out. And that's something that's become a conviction for you.
Yeah.
And it comes back to what are real convictions in the midst of a world of false lies or really manipulations.
Mm-hmm.
And so we have the growth of social media has less and less conviction. We have a world that's growing without conviction.
Mm-hmm.
We really don't know who these people are and what they're really about.
Right.
Are they just for a sponsor? Are they just for whatever that is, for the ratings or whatever they're trying to do? But what is it really that they're about? And this is a unique, I'm excited to be here today because this is a unique show where we get to hear a little bit more of the story behind the stories, like really underlay what is this really, these people. And hearing last week from Louis and others,
Yeah.
you get to hear the real story behind it, and
Well,
I think
so
it's a great idea.
you asked a question earlier, and I guess you asked me, well, does anyone know I am who I am?
Yeah.
And honestly, I really can't answer that for them. That's going to be something, that's going to be anybody's decision that either listens to me or sees a video or whatever. But the people that I think you just mentioned that, I've had interaction with or contact with, the reason that's come to be like that and learn those convictions and stayed consistent with that is because I was in an environment where you didn't have to have good character, but if you wanted something of value, that's about the only thing you could have. I mean, because you can't really have anything, of value in there. So what can you have? Well, you can have your word, you can have your character, you can have your integrity. Those are things that doesn't cost anything, and yet they can't be bought. You don't need money to buy that stuff. They are expensive to have.
Yeah.
And they're so expensive that if you compromise any of those values at any time, they're very, very difficult to rebuild, especially in a small environment where everybody's super critical and super skeptical. And I guess what I'm trying to say is that I learned to at least gravitate towards something that would give me some value.
Yeah.
And that was part of my journey too, was just of self-discovery, is that, what can I have that brings my life meaning? And it's really, it always, to me, it always seemed like it had to start from within. Like external things, I mean,
Yeah.
how much value can they really add to you? I mean, everything has to start, with yourself,
That's a super profound thought. So value is found from something that starts within, not something you can buy from the outside into your life.
I mean, I don't think so. I
Yeah.
mean, yeah, we can possess valuable things, but does that give my life value? Not really.
Isn't that powerful? So I see the latter all around me. Constantly, people buying new homes, buying new things. Just new cars, whatever it is
Hmm.
to come off looking valuable. It's no different than social media,
Yeah,
and
yeah,
it looks this persona
yeah,
of something that. But what I love about your thought is that value. Just because there's things valuable outside doesn't mean that it brings value in your life, and you can bring it makes you a man of value
right.
to others.
Yeah, I don't believe that it does.
Yeah.
Is it fun to have sometimes a
Oh
new
yeah.
toy or something?
Yeah.
Absolutely, it is. You know,
You got a few toys.
I got a few toys. You know,
Yeah.
but it doesn't. At the end of the day, those things don't make me feel better about myself as
Hmm.
who I am, and you know, they don't give me a good sense of well-being. I mean, that has to be developed, nourished, cultivated
Yeah.
from the inside out.
You and I know some friends that have got sucked up into that,
Yeah,
and that life becomes about just supporting those things and
yeah,
becoming about those
yeah.
things, and they get lost and they themselves get sucked right back to where they are. Is that people end up just going right back into the system that they came out of.
They missed the opportunity to do some work on themselves,
Hmm.
and you know, they settle for the superficial things, the things that were more gratifying in the moment. Those, I mean, don't get me wrong. We probably all choose a gratifying
Yep,
choice over, you know, at some point,
for sure.
but choosing gratification when it has high consequences, never going to be
Yeah.
a good move and a
Yeah.
good decision.
So hard to know that though when you're in the midst of that. But so talk to me about this value that comes from within. Like, do you have an example of that where you have something that's from within that comes out as value?
Well, so like I was saying before, one value is what kind of person I want to be,
Yeah.
and then you know, defining that, whatever that is, because it might be different or there might be some similarities or similar
Yeah.
overlays from one person to the next. One thing I noticed early on is noticing people telling people, other people, how good a character they are. That doesn't necessarily mean anything bad, but I'm always skeptical if somebody has to tell me if they're
Yeah.
a good person.
Yeah.
You know, that might be a little bit of a
Yeah.
red flag,
Yeah. Huh?
because I want to see it, and I think
Yeah.
people want to see it. You know, and if people really are a certain way, I don't think they have to broadcast it or announce it.
Yeah.
So at least that's how I. That makes more of an impact to me anyway. What I thought could give me value was building my own character and what
Mm.
that meant for me. So everybody has their list of, you know, things that they want to cling to or tell themselves. Yes, I'm honorable. I'm truthful. I'm honest. I have integrity. You know, whatever the list is. But all these positive attributes, right?
Yeah.
And the list might vary from person to person, but more often than not, there's going to be some common definitions on all
Mm-hmm.
those lists. But that didn't cost me anything except just the work of doing it.
Mm-hmm.
So that came from within. So if I want to be an honest person or I want to be known to be an
Yeah.
honest man, guess who has to do the work? I do.
Yeah.
Which means I have to be honest with people,
Yeah.
and not one time, not 5 times, but all the time,
Yeah.
to the point where there's not even a question in their mind that I'm this way all the time. Like you were saying, living your convictions,
Mm-hmm.
non-negotiable convictions. So honesty is one. Being trustworthy, you know, being kind, being compassionate, whatever the values are. But that's something that anybody can have. But that doesn't mean it's free. It doesn't mean that
Yeah.
it doesn't come without work.
Yeah.
Because to make those things, like those attributes that we want to tell ourselves that make us feel good inside, hey, I'm this, I'm that. Well, you got to be diligent because situations will come up that will test those things.
Mm-hmm.
So you got to be diligent. You got to be aware. Otherwise, it's very, very easy to deviate from those so-called values that you tell yourself you have or that you are. You know, it's like, all right, I slipped. Well, that's all right. I slipped one time. I'm still this and this. Well, you may not be that to someone else that saw that. You know,
Mm-hmm.
for me, that's what I saw. I had to be diligent. And when I did the work early on and cultivating that, later on it became habit forming. So then it wasn't really work. But in the beginning, it was work. But those are the values that came, you know, from for me from within. And I think the same thing goes with inspiration. I think
Yeah.
inspiration comes from within.
Yeah.
You know, people might watch a video or read a self-help book and get inspired, and maybe that works for some people. I've just tried to be my own inspiration, you know, because to me that's longer lasting.
I've always thought about that in my life as heart work. I need to go work on my heart, and then the external work with my hands, it just naturally, I'm more compassionate. I don't have to try to be compassionate. I'm just
Right.
by default, I'm going to have empathy. I'm going to have those things because I've already done the work in the heart.
Right.
That's just the man I've become because internally I've just turned from myself focused to others focused.
Right.
For me personally, that has been a story for me. Is that's where Jesus, this faith religious part relationship comes in, because he's the one who's come in and helped me to kill myself. And my faith with Christianity is it's about crucifying yourself every
Yeah.
day,
Yeah.
because every day myself wants to rise and be victorious. It wants to be the king of my life.
Mm-hmm.
But I've decided that I want to have a different king, for
Yeah.
God to be my king and Jesus to be the transforming agent in my heart every day. But it's interesting, as you said, tested. I was thinking, personally in my life, I've gone through a really tough life season with my wife passing from cancer, with me having 5 kids still at home. Is that I was curious all the way through, how have I changed? You watched me over the last 5 years walk through this path of walking my wife through her final years and transitioning, for her passing to heaven, and letting my kids, me taking it. So share with me just maybe some reflection. I'll be vulnerable here. You share with me some things that maybe you saw in my life during that time,
Well,
because that was my time of testing.
I saw you were consistent, and it was always amazing to me because I knew, or at least I thought in my head, that you have to really be going through some painful stuff here, because that's not for the faint-hearted at all. Death being a common experience to everybody, whether we've experienced, some people haven't reached that point where they've experienced the death of a loved one, but they will. Everybody will at some point. That's not even up for debate. But I had,
Yeah.
so I had that as, I guess, as a reference, of how much that could possibly hurt. Now,
Yeah.
I'm not saying I know how much you felt or hurt, but
Yeah.
at least I had a reference. I
Yeah.
kind of understood a little bit. Hey, you got to be hurting. I mean, but you were consistent in that time, and I didn't see ever see you downcast. I didn't ever see you, I don't know, feeling self pity, in a state of
Yeah.
self pity, and that's no criticism to anyone ever going through that, because I know that'd be really easy to have those feelings and stuff, but I never saw that in you.
Yeah.
I saw consistency, looking at the other side where the light was at, instead of looking,
Yeah.
right, staring in the darkness, where a lot of people could very easily get stuck at.
Yeah.
But it was an amazing example to me, because that's not very common. People don't handle those things, very well, and understandably so. But you handle it with a lot of dignity. You handle it with a lot of faith. I think it probably strengthened you.
Yeah.
More than it damaged you. I mean, obviously it hurt a lot.
Yeah.
So that to me was pretty powerful, and a huge witness to me.
And likewise, I saw, as you alluded to it in your life, the way you cared for your brother John's wife, and just came alongside of her, and just really, I was just super impressed. Again, I just saw this consistent thing where you are a life giver. You wanted to help her through that transition, even though the pain and them being far away, you spent a ton of time there in person, walking them through the details of how to manage all of that, and making sure she's okay and set on solid ground and moving forward. And so I just respected you in that too. And it's interesting in these life testing things, which is the ultimate test, right?
Yeah.
Your loved ones going on before you.
Yeah.
Those are not easy, like you said, not for the faint-hearted. And yet in the midst of that, there is grace given, where we ourselves give ourselves the grace, as well as find grace to give to others.
Yeah.
And in the midst of that, because it's bigger than us too. There's
It is.
other
Absolutely
people around us. And
Yeah.
again, the need for men of conviction in this day is as high as ever has been, And so absolutely, it's been a joy just to travel this journey with you, and just to get to know you along the way. Yeah.
Well, it's been my pleasure too, Tim. You've made a huge impact in my life, because our journey's really just kind of has started.
Yep. We got some fun adventures ahead of
we
us.
got some amazing things ahead.
Ahead of us. Yep. It's really exciting to see some of the things that are laying before us. And And I know the most recent thing with your Primal Fitness is super exciting. Just
Yeah.
to think about being who you are and just combining that in that environment and allowing others to come and share that experience with you is going to be super exciting.
Yes, I'm really excited about that, and I can't wait to,
Yeah.
for that chapter to really take off. 'Cause
Yeah.
that's gonna be really exciting,
It
really
combines a
fun.
lot of your passions
A
all
lot
in
of my
one.
passion,
Yeah. Yeah.
that's where I'm pretty heavy in the passion on that side.
Yeah. Yeah.
And people that know me, they probably roll their eyes and be like, I'm not even surprised.
No, no.
You know?
That's just next setup for you. That's for
Yeah.
sure.